Jesus in My Life, episode 68. Just a quick warning before this episode begins that it contains the retelling of a violent incident, so listeners' discretion advised. Here's a preview of today's episode.
Punch after punch after punch. And I was still like in the fight. Like I was aware of like standing up. I knew I was still standing. From what I remember, I was throwing punches and whatnot, but I didn't know it until I backed up because I was like wet. Like I've been like, what is this, a 10-minute fight? Because I am sweating like I've been running for miles. It ended up being blood. They knifed me in my neck. They knifed me in my face, a couple in my arm, a couple in my back.
Welcome to Jesus in My Life, a podcast with Rob and Jack, where we interview everyday people like me and you about their extraordinary experiences with our Savior, Jesus Christ.
Welcome to another episode of Jesus in My Life. My name is Rob and my co-host, Jack.
Hey, everybody. It's great to be here.
Well, Jack, it is amazing and exciting of who we have in studio today, a friend of ours, a brother. His name is Stefan, and God connected us with Stefan about a year now, maybe a little over a year, and exciting to see what God has done in his life, and excited for our listeners to hear firsthand his story. Stefan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello. Good morning.
You know, one of the things that we do here on Jesus in My Life is we just kind of jump right in,
That's right.
man.
Awesome.
So, you know, this is something I don't know about your past. Who were you before you ended up at church, man? Like, where are you from? What was your childhood like? Tell us about that.
From California, born and raised here, Sacramento, California. I think it was Morse Kaiser was where I was born, to be specific. But I grew up in Sacramento, Lincoln, Sheridan, and Roseville. So firstborn, I was in Sacramento, and we moved to once the family kind of, we had, because I have a sister as well. Once the sister was born, I was 2 years old, and we moved to a second home here in Sacramento. About 5 or 6 years old, when I was 5 or 6, we moved to Lincoln and got to live in the country. And it's still being young as I was, I just, that was so cool. So you got to experience the country life. And Lincoln, if you're from, California, Sacramento area, Lincoln, maybe from 20 years ago was pretty country, a whole lot more country than you were for fun, you were going to the rodeo. And stuff like that. And if your friends at school, that's what they talk about, riding or wrangling their horses or sheep and whatnot. So 4-H was a big thing. So a lot of animals. I got to learn about sheep and cows and buffalo and stuff like that. So it was kind of like a farm every day. I walked to the school bus, and then to take me to elementary school in Lincoln. So it literally was uphill both ways. So it was a lot of fun, and we lived at the end of our kind of it was like a lane off of the main road, and it was kind of like a long court, if that makes sense. It was like an L back into the field, not field, but into the pasture, and where all the homes, and everybody had about 3 to 5 acres. And our plot was about 3.5, 4 acres. So it was a lot of fun experiencing that as 6, 7, 8 years old. And that's when my parents split up. So about 8 years old. And that's the kind of the Lincoln, that switch, that changed. We because they divorced, they went separate ways, and mom went to Roseville.
Okay.
So so it was a big different change, a lot more concrete, but I guess I'm used to Sacramento and whatnot anyway. But so Roseville, and my dad tried to keep the house for a long time, or I'd say a long time, but it was really about a year. It was just hard to manage a 2-story house, 3.5 acres, and by yourself, and then just a lot of work for a working man trying to keep his family,
Did you stay with mom or with dad?
It was a split. It was split.
Okay.
Right from the gates, it was split. They tried to be as smooth with that as split as possible. And I mean, as far as it went decent. I guess it could have been a whole lot worse.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it was good.
Did it have a huge impact on your life?
It definitely did.
Yeah.
So during that time, that's when we would go to church every once in a while.
Okay.
So we would go to like Easter,
Sure.
We'd go for Christmas,
Right.
Christmas Eve, stuff like that. Also, I think more towards which I didn't know that they were splitting up or going to be splitting up. We did more. My dad wanted to kind of bring kind of that family unit into the house, and hoping that going to church would just kind of see that from other good couples or other good relationships.
Sure.
Just kind of, we weren't, I guess maybe what they were doing, I don't know what, of course I was really young, but they're being an adult and a family and stuff. There's a lot of that you see around the world or on TV and whatnot. So I think my dad was trying to get some momentum on something good, something positive in our lives than just, the everyday, the sinning and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. And when my parents were splitting up, there was many times, I would pray and I would say, in my prayers, I was all, keep my mom and dad in love, keep them together, those kind of things, which when you're young, you don't really know those adult emotions, those adult things, and having two kids and the cars and the have it all pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
We were, I wouldn't say we were well off, but we were in a good position. My parents made good money. My dad was a park ranger. My mother was electronics. She made control switches and stuff for elevators and stuff like that. So she manufactured computer chips and stuff like that. So roughly, maybe her making more money than my dad, maybe that would have been a problem. But those are grown-up things at the time. I'll never really know what truly split them up. But it was tough. So I prayed a lot about, stay together. I want to stay together, and I was, my sister and I had a really good, brother-sister bond, that was like my best friend, even though I had other friends, but I'd rather hang out with my sister. Mm-hmm. And that all changed when they divorced. So it was like an immediate change from being happy to nonstop yelling and from both parties and being in the middle of it, not knowing whose side to take. And that's tough as a kid, right? Because you go, man, I love my dad, but hey, he spanks me sometime, but I don't want my mom either because she feeds me it's just always something. But I was just trying to find good in it, and it just didn't work out. So I kind of, I wouldn't say kind of, I did. I kind of was like, I did not believe that there's something that could save this. And so I didn't know why or what or how or what, So I just didn't want to have that crutch is kind of how I looked at it as a kid. Yeah. Because I had cousins that live in Kansas, and they are really religious because my uncle, he had some things. He was in Vietnam and whatnot, and when he came back, he wasn't the same. So Christianity had saved him. And so it was... I just saw them as like the perfect people. And I was like, there's no way I can ever be perfect. And and he's not listening to me, and, so I just felt like I was just, okay, I got to do something. Within the dynamics of my family changed, like between grandparents and whatnot. My grandmother on my dad's side, because my grandfather had passed away when I was born in 1988. But my grandmother on my dad's side still being around, she was still loving towards my mother. But the other side, on my mother's side, they just did not like my dad at all. Didn't want me to be like my dad, talk like my dad, look like my dad, any of those things. So it was kind of like, I didn't know where to go, what to do, who to talk to, who's good, who's bad. People that say they love me, will they just leave me tomorrow? Do I trust? Trust. was out the window. Once I found out what really was happening, my mother went with my dad's best friend, and that was like, wow, I have best friends, and if they were going to do that to me, oh gosh, don't have a best friend then. No way would I want a best friend, you know?
Stefan, yeah, thank you, man, for sharing that. I think a lot of people, very similar to your story, you know, kind of have a pinnacle of their life when it comes to God or their view of God. I mean, it sounds like that was a pretty instrumental thing that happened when you were praying so hard that your family would stay together. And in many ways, your conclusion, as you're saying, you know, God didn't hear you, didn't answer. He almost like abandoned you. And so when we're finding things that are happening, we see it in the flesh, but then we also know in many ways, like that's the blame. I think that's maybe part of your story, right? Wouldn't you say like that's where things started for your view of God?
100%. It opened my eyes to what there is, but it just seemed like it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And so I felt like, if you're not seeing me, well, then what's the point? You know, so being that I was a kid too, you know, well, hey, I can't drive myself to church, and they're split up, so they're not going to drive me. So woohoo, you know, kind of in a way.
Yeah.
You know, like I had other things that I wanted to run away from, and I think that's where I began to run from God.
Wow.
And I think that. I ran for a long time. I think still because I did being that I'm 34 now, and that being when I was 8, I was running for a long time. When my parents split up, and it was a mutual between, it was like every other weekend I was with my dad, and it became more of like kind of pointing fingers on whose fault is whose and why it's this way and that way, and who you're going to choose. You know, you're going to choose me, Mom, or you're going to choose me, Dad. You know, who's going to be who? Well, you know, I want to be with my sister. I don't care who I'm with as family because I love you both. Yeah. I just want to be with my sister too. You know, and keep something together. You know, and so I went with the flow. And I think that's also a learning at that 9-10 years old, just going with the flow, kind of. I guess that kind of worked into my personality, going kind of like a yes man kind of thing. And so I just kind of went with the flow, and there's nothing I could do being a kid. You know, my mom, you know, I didn't have to go to work. I just had to go to school, you know, and then, hey, that's when I got to forget about everything. Mm-hmm. But I didn't pay attention in school because I was so upset about why would I want to, just nothing added up to me to want to fulfill, except what was a good crutch for me was skateboarding. So skateboarding, because it was it wasn't a team. I didn't have to trust anyone else. It wasn't, there was no restrictions. It was a lifestyle. At my time, you know, gosh, that would have been like 96, 97. That would have been, that was like, oh, so cool. I could kind of be myself and not have someone like hate me or like me for it. I just get to be myself, you know? And then there's other people being themselves. And well, hey, that's cool. I'll skateboard with some people. And that's what we were. We were kind of just human beings, I guess, you know? But there was no like judgment. There was no religion involved either. And there was a lot of things that we did that were bad. Of course, nothing like with tagging or like or disturbing or graffiti or anything like that. But skateboarding, you do tricks, you know, and you grind curbs and stuff like that. Yeah. So it was kind of frowned upon that way, you know. Sure. Don't you grind the curb, but. So that's where kind of you get that maybe like the bad guy is a rough word to say, but like, you know, hey, like I could do what I want, you know, and
I think for a long time skateboarding's been associated with like rebelliousness in a sense.
100%.
Right? Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And I didn't want to be a rebel about anything, but it was like part of the thing. So, hey, that's cool. Well, at least I'm standing for something, I guess. Yeah. You know,
it was almost like Stefan, it was almost like your getaway and your escape in many ways.
1,000%. Yeah. So I did it all. I was doing BMX, and if the guys were doing BMX, I did it. If it was skateboarding, I did anything to get out of the house. I did not come home until it was like, And even though it was just my mother, I didn't want to come home, but I was hanging out. At 11 years old with 16, 17, 18-year-old people. There was my dad, everyone in my life, they're heroes to me. My family, they are all good people. It's just unfortunate things happen.
Yeah, I think that's the whole thing with, I understand that divorce is sometimes necessary, right? Some relationships are so toxic, there's unforgiveness, and there's no way to reconcile, right? But it affects everybody around you, right? Like your parents loved you.
Yeah.
They loved you.
Oh, of course.
But the ramifications that divorce had tremendous impact on you. Right? You used to love to be at home. You used to love your family situation. You didn't stop loving your family, but it just was such an uncomfortable place that it drove you to the streets. And, they're your friends, but they're also your influences.
100%.
And so I'm actually curious. Let's jump into what path did that lead you down as you got older, like, a teenager and stuff like that?
That's because that's a lot of my life. I learned a lot from these people, and that's why I say heroes, because in the end, they have taught me something. Whatever they might do in their life, whatnot, I took what I thought I should get out of it, because my parents, they did take me to church, and so morally, I had morals. I had integrity. I had the things of what to do, what not to do, what's right, what's wrong. I mean, a spanking had never made me upset with my father. It was just that they split up, so I didn't know what. Sure. That's where it kind of meshed really well. Skateboarding, being out all the time, respect. Like, respect. Wow. You don't have to know anybody, but if you show respect, you get respect. So I don't really have to love you. I don't have to be your friend. I don't have to do anything or ever have a ramification of anything later on. But hey, we can respect each other. And so I learned a lot about respect and like what to do, what not to do. Meeting people that are kind of, in the skateboard world, they're nice. Everybody, it's all about skateboarding. But there's always, everyone has a personality, and sometimes personalities don't mesh, and they do mesh. So yeah, you learn to just respect everyone with their personality and whatnot. And but everybody was older than me, so I was the kid showing up when they're getting off the bus, and I couldn't wait to get a cigarette. And then we can, and I'm the young kid smoking in front of all the older people, and they're like, this guy's cool.
Yeah, right.
This guy, gosh, probably, at that time, I was a fifth grader when this all started. So I was a fifth grader, and, to me, it was awesome. Now, the people in my life, all of the men in my family smoked cigarettes. Cigarettes, to me, being like Clint Eastwood, those guys, I idolized. Like, if you smoke cigarettes, I knew you were tough. Like, that's just how for some reason, that's just what was in my head.
Yeah, you associated that.
100%. My dad was Chuck Norris is that's how we, Chuck Norris was my dad almost,
It's funny. I was, before you even said that, I was like looking at you and I'm like, this guy looks like a Chuck Norris.
He does.
He does. He has a very Chuck Norris look.
So, and my dad was a ripped guy, and he was really like that. He was like a Chuck Norris. So, like, I wanted to be just like my dad all the time. I was like, but he smokes. Okay, I'll try it, and this and that. And that's where that went. And so before it was Albertsons, I think it was Long's Drugs or something like that. And you could walk in and the cigars would be on the wall. And I'd walk in and steal cigars all day long. And pass them out to the older guys. And now I'm even cooler. Oh man, I'm getting like a reputation, and the girls like me, and then I started to see the side effects probably within about a year of like what it's doing to my family. I started to see that I was a problem now, because now my mom was worrying the heck out about me, and my sister was there with no big brother, and then I was stuck in like this moral decision. Do I choose, and ultimately I chose this, hanging out with my friends. I felt like, well, hey, you got to do it too, sis. You got to grow up too, to shift from like my being fun with friends and whatnot. My family, going to my mom's side, my grandfather, both Grammy and Grandpa, Papa and Grammy is how I called him, my mom's side, really educated, really on the higher class of things. So I learned how to eat at the table, the gentlemen, the open the doors, all the how to use your silverware, where things go, stuff like that. And so I valued that. But then there was the other side to where it was like, well, hey, I can support you for college and stuff like that, but you have to be like a slave, and that's maybe a bad word, but like you have to conform to anything I say or do. And for a long time, okay, that's not a problem because I really didn't see the manipulation that's going on. The manipulation was my grandfather hated my dad. So my papa, and I would say maybe hated is a tough word, but they would fight at the dinner table even when my parents were together, when we'd be over there. And it was a difference of opinions, but he thought my dad was really uneducated. But he brought the food to the table. My dad was a park ranger. He was a good man, doing moral things on a daily basis. And my grandfather didn't like that. He wanted the money. He wanted him to be where there's no problem with ever anything, and so he kind of always downed my father. So when I would go over there, I'd start to resent my papa, and because he'd be like, "Oh, you sound like your dad. It's not how you say that. Your vocabulary is horrible. You're, the way you structure your sentence. You don't say ain't. The ain't a word. Those kind of things. But he was such a hero to me that I felt like, well, hey, and he's like, well, hey, your parents are divorced now. You need to be the man in the house. And that, boom, was another big moment. And so this is about 12 years old, wow. 11, 12 years old. I'm being told I need to be the man of the house now. And so here I am, worrying about wanting to be with my friends. I want to just be a kid, but I do want to be an adult. So, I got to take care of my mom and my sister. So then I started, maybe I could start selling these cigarettes. Maybe I can start selling these things. What else can I do, to support my family? Yeah. Let alone protect them. I don't think they needed protecting. I had a group of 10 guys that would be down for anything at any time at 12 years old, like it was just, it was quite a trip. And so when that kind of happened, I was starting to not be at home still, but I started selling cigarettes. That led into marijuana, and that led into other things, prescription pills and whatnot. Because I skateboarded, I got injured a lot. And my parents, I didn't know it was this bad, but they were hooked on prescription pills. I say that it was bad because I think it controlled a lot of their decision making. Instead of playing with me, no, I got to go get a prescription instead of taking me or going to see my skateboard tournament or something like that. Because I didn't play sports because my parents never went to anything I went to after they divorced. Nobody. I was there like, what the heck, So just didn't have that support. My friends supported me in that sense. I just felt like now my job is to support my family, which would be my mom and my sister. Because at that time, my mom didn't want my dad to have any have us as leverage. So she tried to restrict my dad as much as she could and use the legal system as much as possible. Even talking to my dad about things, when I would visit him, I just, hey, go on skateboard. And so I neglected kind of hanging out with my dad. Now that I'm older, I see that how much I probably hurt him because, being his son, wanting to hang out with his family, only sees once every other week. But I just didn't see that. I felt like my feelings, because that's ultimately how I saw things too. Everyone's feelings, and I was like, okay, well, everyone's so selfish. I guess that's the way to be, and so I started into high school. High school freshman year is when I was really kind of on the selling thing, and I didn't I wouldn't say I was good at it. I wouldn't say anything. It was just like situational. You know, it was nice to have money in my pocket for something that I was going to do already, you know. So being a skateboarder, I would get injured. My mom could get prescriptions, could get those filled for me. And then it was kind of like, okay, my mom doesn't know that I'm manipulating her. I'm getting a win kind of thing, you know? And it was just down this path of just really bad.
Just a spiral. I mean, really, in many ways.
Every year got worse.
Yeah.
Every year got worse. Freshman years, I felt like that was like, oh man, I'm at the top of my game. You know, everything's working out good. Like in my life,
Sure.
like even though my life was my mom, my family, but it just felt like they could throw that away and it not be a problem, you know? And I'm like, okay, well then I'm just in it for myself, you know, in a way, you know, all I got to do is put a little money in for my mom and my sister if they ever need anything. And then, you know, everything should be clear off my shoulders for it. And that freshman year in high school was kind of like, this is great because I've already been talking to these seniors when they were a freshman when I was 11, you know. So I was only 13 as a freshman. So the older kids, it just meshed good. I walked into school like kind of not popular, but people knew me in a way. It's when sophomore year came is when I got busted. That's when finally it kind of came all crashing down. So I got busted for cocaine and marijuana, and of course cigarettes. But the funniest part about that is I was going to actually leave the school to go to independent study, so then I can concentrate on selling all day. I brought the stuff with me, a friend, and this and that set up. I don't know, but I basically ran from the cop, stashed it on in a spot where I thought I could get it later. The dogs came, found it, and boom, there I go. So in front of the whole school, I'm getting locked up at lunchtime.
And you were how old at this time?
I was 14.
Wow.
14. Because my birthday's in July, so it always after the school year is when I turned to the age everyone else is.
Wow.
So it was like so everybody coming into freshman year that was 14, I was just already turned 13, and I got to wait until. So
that's crazy. So you were younger, but you were way more exposed, and influential than your age should have allotted you.
oh yeah.
So did you get sent to juvenile hall, or when did it happen?
Okay, so how it went was they sent me to this was in Roseville. They sent me to the Roseville police station. Luckily, I have a great mom who was not fortunate enough to come pick me up. I'm not sure if there was bail involved or what it was, but I didn't have to I didn't get locked up, luckily. But the charges, of course, you know, and that's when it was like, oh, you did something bad. And I'm like, I didn't do nothing bad. This is what I do every day. There's nobody's going to stop me. And, you know, there's no rules. This is just another thing, you know, oh, well, was I a little like scared? Yeah, but I felt like everyone that I've ever was the path I was going in, you had to get some credibility too. Right. So, hey, this is just part of my resume now. Yeah. even though I'm stupid, I got in trouble, you know.
Stefan, you've done a really good job of kind of helping us understand your upbringing and the influences in your life, both negative and positive. Let's shift gears and jump to the impact this has had on the later stages of your life, you know, post high school. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. And so after getting in trouble through high school, I wasn't going to graduate because I ditched everything. 10 classes a semester senior year. I graduated. I walked. So that was a drive. I wanted to do something, but still messing up in life. But I had a high school sweetheart. I thought she would be the one, right? Kind of thing. And that's a couple years later is, when everything kind of that's when my life went downhill in an aspect of like, okay, I'm going to start a family. But that's, we went our separate ways, and I went in like a depression. Like I was about 21, 22. I was overweight. I say overweight. I'm just a bigger guy. I felt like that's what maybe she left me for. Maybe she didn't like me for, you know, those kind of things. So I got super wasted. I would get wasted every night, and it was just an alcoholic problem. So one night I just got super plastered, about 30 beers or so.
Did you say 30 beers?
Yeah, about 30. I'd say about 30 beers.
Wow.
I drank about a half gallon of E&J to top it off, and this was probably 2-3 in the morning by now. And I took some pills, some uppers to kind of keep me going, and by the end of that, I was like, well, I'm out of cigarettes. I'm out of beer. I need to go get some more. So I decided to leave where I was at, which was close to my house, and went walking down the street without a T-shirt. This is middle summer. So middle summer, 90 degrees at, 10 o'clock or 4 in the morning, already 90 degrees. So I was just in my shorts and my sneakers walking down the street, looking like a drunk guy, and I was targeted. Boom. I had about, I think it was about 5 people. I was so plastered drunk, I don't really remember how it worked because it was dark too. Yeah. And they yelled at me. I kind of looked where they were at. I kind of tried to zero in because all that double vision. And then it was like, punch after punch after punch after punch. And I was still like in the fight. Like I was aware of like standing up. I knew I was still standing. I was I think from what I remember, I was throwing punches and whatnot, but I didn't know it until I backed up because I was like wet. Like I've been like, what is this, a 10-minute fight? Because I am sweating like I've been running for miles. Yeah. It ended up being blood. They knifed me in my neck. They knifed me in my face, a couple in my arm, a couple in my back. And literally, so without a shirt, I was yelling at these guys, like, what? That's all you got? And when I was saying that, blood was like coming out of my cheek and my neck. But I didn't know that. I just was like, I just wanted to make sure that they were a little away from me. And it was that's when like the real fight or flight moment hit me. I looked down and I was covered in blood, like to my ankles, just dripping. Just like a pool coming out of my neck and my face. I could stick my tongue through my left cheek, which goes from my top of my ear all the way down to my chin, the tip of my chin. And my neck, they actually started in the back. So I think when they were hitting me is when the knife was involved. Because they're all it's like slashing out. Like if you were to punch me and the punch went through me, that's how the knife went. So the entrance was like here and up and out, and the entrance was here and up and out. So I had all these marks. And so I went to the store that I was still originally going to go to.
So
I'm literally
going to go, I'm bleeding to death, but I'll still go get some cigarettes?
So you never lost conscience?
Never lost conscience. Wow. I from how I remember it, I yelled at him, I said, you haven't killed me yet. And I said, well, hey, I'm going to go get me a beer now. Because that's how I remember it. And I walked to the store, which was a 7-Eleven. And I went to literally open the door. And when I went to open the door, I looked at myself and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm bleeding to death right now. I probably can't come into the store, but here's my money. Can you get me a beer? To the guy.
Oh my God.
Wow. This is how messed up I was. Okay. The guy looks at me and he goes, buddy, what's wrong with you? I said, I just want a beer and throw some cigarettes on that too, So, thank the Lord, he called 911.
Okay.
Yeah.
I sat down on that curb thinking he was going to come out with my beer and cigarettes. He never did. So about a minute goes by and just everything's rushing through my head still. But I was just I was going to do what I was going to do. I was going to get there and get my beer and cigarettes, and then I'll go home, even though all this had happened.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking to myself, well, hey, if I do die right here, this would be so embarrassing. I am going to get home and I'm going to say because I live with my grandmother and my father. After high school, I moved in with my dad after high school. I'm an adult now. I'm leaving the bird's nest. But yeah, so mom and dad, or grandma and dad. And I was like, well, hey, my grandmother's 90 years old. She doesn't deserve to have me go first, but I would like her to know that I love her to death because she's been my rock. She's been the one I could clearly talk to my whole life. Just didn't notice it when I was younger. So I just all these things. So I ran home about 2 miles. I ran home. I just started running, but I didn't want to go the way that I came up. So I took the detour, which added the mile.
So literally you're bleeding to death.
Yeah.
And you're walking home.
So in the middle of the run is when I think it started clotting. So I thought like the bleeding like was really bad when I started because I was just starting to huff and puff, but it was like towards like me getting, I'd say about 3/4 of the way home is when it was like really like drying up now because I'm running and the blood's drying and now I'm like cracking and like I'm like sticky and all these things. And I'm like, gosh, am I even going to make it home? I've got to make it home. So I just tried and all of a sudden here comes the cops, the ambulance. They thought they didn't know what was going on. So they did their normal procedure. They had me, get on my knees. Hey, what's wrong with you? Because maybe I could have been on PCP for those.
Sure.
I could have been going and being the bad guy, and so they just wanted to make sure I was all right, but I still was combative. Once they tied me down, it was kind of like, I felt like, oh no, and I had a lot of blood going in my throat. I couldn't really breathe. So I kind of was spitting blood and, unfortunate for those guys, cause I didn't mean it to spit blood at them, but that's just, I had to breathe.
Yeah.
So they shocked me. I think they tasered me and I was out. I woke up with, like 400 stitches. I think it was, they call the scar on the face normally is called a $150. It takes about 150 stitches for the chin, from the ear to the chin. And my throat, they couldn't sew it, so they stapled it first when I got in the ambulance. And they couldn't touch my face. They just were like, well, let's staple his throat. And so yeah, I was just, they said that the artery got nicked. So I could have died.
Yeah.
But I guess, when I woke up, my sister and mom were there and I was just like, wow, I'm here. What happened? Was that a dream? But no, here's I'm in the hospital and, went home, and, it was tough to look in the mirror,
Yeah.
Luckily though, I got a face surgeon, and he $120,000 later, fixed my face. And luckily I had medical and, being later that I could file for victim's assistance. That helped with that as well. Being a victim, even though I don't like to say that, but ultimately that helped me. And that's when my life changed completely with believing in God again. And,
I mean, literally you're a miracle. Right? Like think of all the drugs you were on, all the alcohol.
There was many things.
As many cuts, the blood that you lost.
Mm-hmm.
Like really?
And this isn't the first time I got caught in the neck. I fell on a barbed wire fence riding my bike with my eyes closed before, and it ripped my right side of my neck open. And that was in Lincoln, and I had to get sewed up from the sheep farmer next door. So,
Oh my God. Wow.
so here, my mom thought I got stung by bees, but no, it was a barbed wire stuck in my throat. The slash was on this side of my cheek and on my throat here. So if you see I have just a little scar now, but that thing was like this long. Wow. I rode the barbed wire with my neck.
I love that you can laugh about it now.
I know. Like if listeners could see this right now,
This
like
is crazy.
And I mentioned before, like I said, they're all my family are heroes, man. They've done a lot in their lives as well. They've 100% survivors. The great wars. I've had every family member, every grandfather I've had fought in a major war. So they, my grandfather from my mom's side, my papa, he said to me, you got a choice. You can carry a gun every day, or you can forgive yourself and move on. And I kind of thought about that, and I was sorry. And I was really kind of thinking about that. And I was like, well, I don't want to carry a gun, because if I go to jail for killing somebody, well, then what's the point of that? If I carry a gun, every decision I want to make is going to end with a gun. I don't want to do that. Yeah. And if I could carry a knife, it's the same result. Now I'm always thinking about end result, use the knife. End result. So forget that, use my words.
Yeah.
That's when I started doing kind of like my own home, read the Bible. That's when I was like, you know what, if I'm going to live for something, I live for God, give my heart to him and forgive all the hate in my life. There was just so much that I just didn't want to let go and forgive it, because I felt like that was weak.
So Stefan, it was this situation that happened, like literally, minutes to death, really. I mean, and God spared you for sure.
That's it. Yeah.
But that was the begin. That sort of was the pinnacle of you then leaning in and saying, okay, like I gotta, in many ways, come back to God. Would you say?
I'd say, yeah, stop running.
Wow.
Because I was running. I thought, well, I just got to get away from, if I don't pray, then he won't hear me anyway. If he doesn't see me anyway, well, then I can do whatever I want, and I'm just going to go on and do what I want. And then,
curious, because that was an issue that you brought up when you were younger. You didn't feel like God saw you or God heard you. Knowing that you survived this traumatic event, was that like a realization, like, no, God hasn't left me because there's no other explanation? Was it something like that?
It wasn't yet.
Okay.
Because what had happened after all that, and I kind of was through that year. I was about 23. I think 23 on the dot. That happened in October. I think maybe it was October. So it was the end of summer. So roughly about this time is when all that happened. But it was a year later, that next summer, I was cliff diving and I slipped off the cliff and landed on my head.
What?
And smashed my right side of my forehead, my eye socket, and the top of my jaw into my face. So into my head. I did. So I jumped once, fine. Jumped twice, no problem. The third time was slippery because the other 2 times when I got up wet had soaked the rock, and it was a slippery river rock. I was about 20 feet up, and you had to kind of do the running jump, and then you planted a foot and jumped. And when I planted my foot, it went the other way and slipped backwards. So like a gainer, like a forward backflip. But I didn't do the whole backflip. I only went half that flip and landed directly on my face. So right here, no blood though.
Because you lost it.
You had none.
Because I already lost it all before.
You had none left, man. It's all dried up.
So no, but luckily it was a round rock because it was all round rock. I landed on a big round rock on the bottom. I used my arm to brace me, and that ripped the corner of my palm off, and smashed my face in. I woke up I say woke up, but I was kind of out for a second, but I landed in the water. So I hit my head and bounced off the rock and landed splash in the water. Woke up, trying to, float and whatnot, but my legs didn't work. I was all twisted out of, place, but finally got to the shore. And then that's when on the drive home with my bone sticking out of my eyelid and everything was swollen, I was like, there's got to be something he's keeping me alive for.
I would say so.
What in the world? I've gone through so much darn pain in my life, and physically, mentally. I mean, just relationship wise. How much pain do you want me to be unbondable, or what the word is? He's got to have something for me. I don't know what it is, but I better stay on track.
It's like you're the man of 9 lives, like literally.
I went to the emergency room and they said, well, we can't help you. I said, well, what? And they said, we totally see that your face is shattered, but we can't help you right now. You're going to have to schedule an appointment for surgery. I said, oh, okay. So that's what I'll do then. I'll go home and go to work then. So literally, this happened. I was at the same job. I was working at a lumberyard at this time. When I had got the cuts, I went back to work. Literally after the stitches, went back to work, working because I have to make some money.
Oh my gosh.
And I just, the funniest part is that here I am back at work and my eye is swollen. My right side of my head is just huge right now.
They let you work?
Yeah, well, because I just said I wasn't in any pain.
Okay.
It did break a few blood vessels and whatnot there, so the pain nerve was severed. So some of it I didn't have any feeling in at all. Because he does his magic. Literally, that is insane how he helped me with the pain. Yeah. I didn't take any medication for it. Didn't even take Tylenol for it. It just worked out. Went to work. I worked 3 weeks until my surgery. I bumped my head probably 2 or 3 times on, lumber, because I have to cut it to size, and walking through and my eye, the swelling went away after about a week. So I was seeing crooked. My eye sagged to about the middle of my cheek because I had no bone structure to hold it there anymore. So the swelling of the muscles had kept everything in place until the swelling went away.
Yeah.
So I had to turn my head sideways to see straight. So I wore glasses, and I would turn my head sideways, and oh gosh, people think I'm smiling, but I'm squinting because the sun and my teeth are showing, and people think I'm smiling at them. But thank gosh I had the glasses on, because they would have seen, So, I had my eye socket bone sticking out the inside of my eye for 3 weeks. And so when I went to the hospital or went to the surgery, they're like, we'll take care of it all. We might have to re-break some things, whatnot. And then that's when I got more scars, right? So they had to cut above my eyelid, under my eyeball, and inside my mouth, in my cheek, my upper lip. And they pulled my face out and had to re-break a few things. And they said, yeah, because you actually heal really well. The face is one of the most places that heal the fastest, but is also most delicate. Yeah. So they were like, yeah, we're just going to have to re-break a few things, and they put it all back in place. But they put titanium. So I have a titanium eye socket with a titanium upper right jaw to hold it all together. I have because of the scars too from the cuts, I really have no feeling in my face anymore. So shaving, I could shave without worries, but I just don't shave. Yeah. But the vibration, I'll feel it, and it tingles my eye, and has me, and I think sometimes when I know it's going to rain, I get a little twitch here and there too. The titanium, that's when I was like, gosh, what do I need? I need to dive deeper into faith, and. I came out of that surgery just like not being able to see very well and everything, because I was so knocked out. But it was just like a fresh breath. They were telling me, your skull's fractured, like all the way from your top of your ear, top of your skull down to like your jaw. There's nothing we can do. So hopefully, you just don't put don't sleep on that side. So yeah, I had to learn to sleep on my left side.
Oh man.
But I still didn't want to commit, though. There was something holding me back, because I felt through so many years, 20 years of standing up for myself, I felt like that I am ultimately my own judge and jury and executioner, But I was like, there's no way that a higher power didn't do something, intervened in some point here, and taught me these life lessons for some sort of reason, or to have me do. There's something that I'm supposed to do, that he wants me to do. I just don't know yet. That's when I was 24. So here I am, 34, taking me 10 years to finally start going to church on a regular basis. Through those 10 years, it's still a struggle. I felt, though, that the presence had never left me. Knowing that he came in, it was like the weight was lifted off my shoulders, but yet he didn't leave me. I always felt like no matter what decision I made, even how reckless it was, skateboarding, whatever, that he was there. And I think that's the thing, is ultimately my whole life growing up to now, he has been there, guiding me, holding me up the whole time. Even with my spirits and with all of whatever's going on, it's just I was directing it towards the wrong places, and he just would always try to divert me back and show me well, this is what you're doing, and then I would just say, I'm running again, Lord, I'm running again, and so it wasn't until Rob, I met your son, Rylan, at work, and he opened my eyes to forgiveness, and what Jesus is really about, and how he accepts you for who you are. And because that 10 years, I was like a crusader. I was at home doing my own studying, and I felt like I'm in the army, the God's army. I am there for whatever I got to do. I just wasn't getting the teaching I needed. The actual learning something. And I was just reading it without knowing the actual the truth behind it. because it is the truth. It's just I was reading it to my agenda, and so I was looking for, how does this fit me? How does this, so I just kind of reading over it all the time. And of course, the one Psalms, I do not remember the number, but it's, of course, the Lord is my shepherd. That one, I always read that daily. So that was kind of my daily, because I didn't know how to pray. I was scared of praying. Still am scared, but I pray every day now. I do it before bed. I feel like, there's lots of ways to pray. I think right now I'm at beginning stages of it, so I just, whenever I feel comfortable, I do it. But then, like I said, doing it every night, last night I prayed to him and was saying, last few nights I've been a little didn't want to pray. And just cause I felt like, there's things I got to do first, and then I just want to go right to bed. And then I was like, He's given me time. He's given me, why can't I give him 2 minutes? Right? If that's the case, because that's being consistent is what it's about, right? Being there, because he's been there for me, as consistent as anybody else.
Well, Stefan, you alluded to how I got connected to you, and for that matter, how Jack also got connected. Our whole church really was through my son Ryland, and because you guys were working together, and he invited you to a service, and from that was the first day, and it was like, I remember our conversation. It was like, no, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is home. In many ways, it was like, spiritually speaking, but certainly physically, it was. I think that might have even been your words, like, I'm home now.
It was.
And then just fast forward, like recently, it was Easter, right? Easter. What happened at Easter this year?
I got baptized. Yes, so I finally admitted that I'm a sinner, and that there is a new beginning. And I don't know if I was baptized when I was a baby. I don't think I was. So this was huge for me, because it was my decision. It wasn't my parents. And I think that's really kind of where I'm at now, is like, I've forgiven what has happened. I haven't forgot it, because I wouldn't be the man I am today without it. But the forgiveness works it wonders, because my heart is in peace. Like, I've kind of always worked at being at peace, I've always looked at everything as a good thing, even though how bad it might be. And of course, there are things that, there's no way you can change that, no matter how much you polish it, right? But, definitely, I always try to find the happier thing, because I just don't like the evil, and to think that I was evil at some point hurts my feelings, but I have to, if I don't forgive myself, then I'm going to go and drink and go out one night and be an idiot, and even though I survived, I don't know if I can do that again. Well, because I really didn't do it. I guess, God did it. He kept me alive, and I like to say it was me, that ran, but I didn't run. He did that for me. He lifted my legs up, said, you are not going to go at this curb. You're going to go where I want to take you. And I just got up and went. And now looking back at it, it is what exactly had happened. It's like I was lifted, and just kind of gracefully, kind of put in those places, even though they were just horrible conditions, to be in, being cut and whatnot and injured. But that's kind of how it's been my whole life. I never really broke any bones or anything like that, but, being baptized, though, was, the big step. Playing drums at church. I always wanted to be a rock star, and whatnot. But there's a difference to that. I think being a rock star, you sell your soul, and you become what others want you to be. Mm-hmm. And at church, I get to play what God's people want, and like what I kind of. It's not so much what I want to play. It's how it feels and what it brings out, and it's more gratifying. It's not. I'm not getting paid for it. I'm giving my God-given talents back to Him.
Well, and Stefan, I mean, for our listeners, I can definitely testify to this. Is that when you're playing the drums, bro, you're worshiping in what God has done in your life. What you do is obviously Spirit led, and it's a result of God's presence. So
Yeah, Stefan, like I have so much that I'm thinking about you and your story. And the one thing that I think is, you said God allowed these things to happen, right? Like, yes, in a sense, because he's sovereign, but there was things that were done to you inadvertently that wounded you, right? And you became a lone wolf in a sense, right? Like, I have to look out for me, myself, and I, right? No one's has my back. I'm going to create the situation where I'm safe. And it led down a path of destruction in a lot of ways. And that's where God's goodness is. He was there preserving your life time and time and time again. No, I'm not done with you. I have a plan and a purpose for you. Someday you're going to recognize that I never left you. Right? I was there with you in all of it. Right? Because you're my son and I'm preserving you for a greater good. And so I want to just reaffirm something in your life.
Sure.
Jesus died on the cross to redeem you from the things that were done to you and the things that you've done. He paid the price. You don't need that burden is off of your shoulders. Amen. And he preserved your life, and everything that's happened to you is going to be used to glorify him. You're a living testimony of his goodness and grace, right?
Everything, all glory goes to God.
Yeah.
Amen.
All glory goes to God, for sure.
And one of the things I love about Stefan is just from the day he came, he was all in.
Oh, totally 100%.
All in, right? Like
absolutely.
Wherever chairs need to be put away, like Stefan's there. Like I would come on Thursday, we were doing like a midweek service stuff, and he's practicing drumming up there, and I'm setting up chairs, and if he had a moment to get off the drums, he was there helping me.
That's right.
Like I just love your attitude of I'm all in. And as radical as you used to be, God's going to use that radicalness for him and his ministry that he's called you to. Just hearing everything that your story just brings me back to how the founding of Jesus in My Life podcast, right? And, it comes from the story in Luke chapter 8 where there's this like demon possessed guy, right? Like he is the wild man of that society, right? Like he's a danger to himself. He cuts himself. He's a danger to society. They try to tie him down.
Right.
He breaks out of chains. Nothing can control this guy, right? He's a wild man. And he's relegated to the outskirts of a town, right? Like there's no hope for this guy. And then he has an encounter with Jesus, and Jesus delivers him from that. It was a legion of demons, right? And his life is converted, and he's like, Jesus, I want to follow you, whatever you have for me. Jesus is like, well, your assignment is to go back to your house, to your home, and tell them what I've done, all the good that I've done for you, right? And he goes in above and beyond that. And he goes to the entire town and he tells everybody what Jesus has done for him. And so you did that today, right? Whoever's listening, the people you know and the people you don't know, and for how long this podcast, we can keep it on the air, for future generations even. You've shared your testimony that
Thank you.
God is good.
Oh, yeah.
He preserves life. He has a plan. You can't be too far gone for Jesus to save.
Amen.
That man, all society had given up on him, and he became a living testimony for Jesus.
Amen.
And your life, God is using as a living testimony of his goodness. So
that's right.
Thank you for coming on the show today, brother.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It was quite a story.
Hopefully there's more laughing. I know it's a little serious. But
well, I just love your
life.
I love your attitude. Right? You could have told that all those traumatic things that happened to you with like a very somber seriousness, and you're just exuding joy and laughing about it, man. And so
because the end result, it's not over yet, but there's so far the light is light.
Amen.
And it's just the beginning of your story, brother.
That's right.
Right? Like God had
That's it.
so many more good things for you, brother. So
awesome. Well, thank you again, Stefan. Love you, brother. And the rest of you, tune in every Tuesday. We drop every episode on Tuesday morning. God bless you.
Thank you for listening to Jesus in My Life. New episodes release every Tuesday. Subscribe on your preferred podcasting platform so you don't miss a single episode. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please consider sharing this podcast with a friend or family member. If you would like to help our visibility online, consider rating us and posting a review on Apple Podcast. Have an awesome Jesus in My Life story? Contact us at jesusinmylifepodcast@gmail.com.